Considering that about 80% of the Parliamentary Press Corps has been parked at an Ottawa courthouse for the Duffy trial, it's surprising that none of them bothered to write about another recent court case in Ottawa where the person being sued was none other than Jason Kenney, now the Defence Minister. The Federal Court of Appeal just issued a ruling on that lawsuit. Kenney was being sued in his capacity as the former Minister of Immigration and Citizenship. He was being sued by the Canadian Arab Federation. Don't you think that's interesting and newsworthy? Aren't you curious? The ruling came out a few weeks ago, so it's not like there's been no time to read it. It's only 45 paragraphs long. That's pretty short for a court case, so why the media blackout? I searched the Globe and Mail, the Toronto Star, the National Post, and the Sun media newspapers. I searched the CBC, and then I used the media database called Infomart. In the whole country, all I could find was a 15-second radio clip on broadcast news and a small story in a local Jewish paper. Why the cone of silence? Well, it's obvious, because Kenney won the appeal. He won the trial too. Now he won the appeal. It was a unanimous 3-0 ruling of the Federal Court of Appeal. Here's the story. The Canadian Arab Federation used to get enormous amounts of tax money from the government. They claimed the money was for English classes. But if you looked at what the Canadian Arab Federation did, it was clear that they were anti-Israel, pro-terrorist extremists. They literally campaigned to keep the terrorist groups Hamas and Hezbollah legal in Canada. They don't even hide that. For that and many other reasons, Kenney cut them off. He called them a bunch of anti-Semites. Why should taxpayers fund that? Well, the Canadian Arab Federation sued, demanding their money. Gimme! I mean, the Liberals had always given them taxpayers' money. So should the Conservatives. It was their legal right. My favorite is that these extremists claimed it was violating their freedom of speech. Yeah, leftists never quite understand free speech, do they? Free speech means you're allowed to say things, even bigoted, racist, anti-Semitic things, without government interference. It doesn't mean you get a taxpayer's subsidy to say those things. Now, when the Canadian Arab Federation filed this lawsuit, it got huge coverage all across the media. So we know the media finds the story interesting when the anti-Semites are on the attack and Jason Kenney's on the defensive. Funny how they don't think it's newsworthy or important when Kenney wins again, and when the Canadian Arab Federation is ordered to pay more than $90,000 in court costs too. Look, it was always an extreme long shot case, a nuisance suit really. Imagine if any time the government cut funding to anyone or anything, if you could run to a court and get an order for your funding back. That's properly the decision for elected legislators or the cabinet minister, not a court. And the court unanimously agreed with Kenney. Look, I agree with the media party's first instinct. This was an important lawsuit. I just think the end of the story is important too, not just the beginning when the Arab Federation sued. Oh, one last thing. The Canadian Arab Federation, whom our government and courts say are a bunch of anti-Semites, have been supporting Jew-hating, Canada-hating terrorist groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. Yeah, its former president was this guy, Omar Alghabra. He's the Liberal Party candidate now in Mississauga. He's a senior organizer for Trudeau's leadership campaign and senior organizer of Trudeau's campaigns in Canadian mosques. So that's 4 judges in a row now who have ruled that Jason Kenney's decision to cut off funding to the Canadian Arab Federation because of their extremist views was reasonable to call them anti-Semitic. And yet the former president of that group is now running as Trudeau's senior aide, probably a cabinet minister if Trudeau wins. Yeah, I think we know why the media party have ignored this court ruling in the middle of an election campaign. Don't you? For TheRebel.Media, I'm Ezra Levant.